The Bat Nan Eight Lady. Originally, this fierce goddess was an ordinary woman, living back in the early 1st century. She was beautiful, smart, and just engaged to a local leader. But a brutal Han governor named To Ding arrived. He wanted her as his concubine, but she refused his multiple attempts. So, To Ding slaughtered her father and her fiancé, completely destroying her entire family right before her wedding. She had to flee to the Tianla region, put on a suit of armor, and raise a literal army. She joined up with the historic rebellion of the Trung sisters, taking out her absolute rage on the Han forces. To Ding had to cut his hair, flee back to his country. But it didn't end yet. The Han Empire was massive. Eventually, a huge army led by the general Ma Vian crushed the rebellion. Refusing to be captured and violated, she drew her own sword and ended her life. She is one of the 8 women generals under the Trung sisters' rebellion. They are the very first heroes in Vietnamese history. The 4th prince, he was literally the son of Bat Hai King. When he descended to earth, he grew up in a poor farming family. He was incredibly smart, a master of martial arts, and an absolute beast in the water. At the time, the ruling class was completely corrupt and bleeding. He eventually took over a rebel army. The Tring dynasty sent his old school buddy, also his enemy, Pham Dinh Chomp. The two sides clashed down in several massive battles. In the end, the rebel army was surrounded due to reinforcements of royal courts. So one night, he dove into the water and swam right over to command boat. He just dropped a letter that said, "I could take your head right now, but considering we used to be school buddies, I'll let you live. In exchange, open up an escape route for my people." Chomp pretended to agree. He had his troops waiting in ambush. The rebel army was completely destroyed. On the day he was executed, his wife came next to him. She drove a knife straight into her neck, so she could follow her husband into the afterlife. The 9th prince, he was literally born into royalty. But a concubine realized he was going to inherit the throne instead of her child. She secretly met a midwife and tried to bribe her to murder the baby. The midwife was like, "My job is to save lives. Why would I kill anyone? But I have another trick to make the baby intersex, so he definitely won't be made king." The midwife rubbed a toxic leaf right on the newborn's private parts. Later, the king found out the heir was a boy, but his yin and yang were incomplete. The queen immediately knew what happened. It was the concubine's evil plot. Gradually, she became incredibly bitter and furious. But the king just banished the queen and her children out to a desolate island. They eventually drifted and passed away at the Khon estuary. This is where he transformed into a deity. 3 stories have one thing in common: family. The Bat Nan Eight Lady lost her fiancé and her dad. Not everyone can have an epic ending after tragedy. I used to ask myself, what is the meaning of a loved one's death? What does a person have to learn? Is that because of karma? If there are past lives, what have they done? If we come to Earth to learn, then why did some people have to go through that kind of lesson? I cannot explain those answers yet. The 4th prince's wife ended her life in order to follow her husband. Your family may support you at all costs. The 9th prince was exiled by his own father. Or, as is very common in Vietnam, those with deep spiritual roots rarely resonate with their families. Neither do I. As a spiritual practitioner, it isn't easy. I can't share things with my family. Even if I do, they misunderstood my opinions, my beliefs. They said I should focus on material things, not something invisible. They said I don't understand, but I see the world with different eyes. I cannot express my thoughts clearly, but I can write. I believe I'm creating useful content, helping people that I will receive more than I thought. I really did. They said, if I don't make much money, when tragedies happen, what I can do is just cry. Yes, I used to cry in the dark for decades. I used to scream unconsciously. But now, I'm controlling myself better. Tragedies may happen, but it won't be so hard and painful. 'Cause I'm trying to do blessing things. Life is unpredictable, but seeing the world with different perspectives, I can't stop myself from writing, creating. Deep down, I would rather share about spirituality than anything else. I believe I receive guidance from the spiritual world. I'm learning by going through the hardest, disappointment and loneliness. The chosen ones are lonely because they see what others can't yet. You cannot show a vision to the eyes that aren't ready to see it. That's not isolation. That's the price of seeing things early. My husband is an atheist. When I heard my husband's thoughts, I just looked down, all quiet, because I know he cannot trust invisible things yet. Science and spirituality. My husband asked me, who set the spiritual path? I replied, it's not any gods but ourselves. Because due to past lives, due to the dust of life, we forgot who we used to be. I'm not sure about the theory. We come from another planet. That our souls choose the earth to learn. I used to not be sure about past lives, but now I see more proof when I learn more about our rooted religion. In Vietnam, there's a term called duyên, which is nearly like fate or destiny. Not enough duyên. One remains blind to the spiritual realm. They places their faith only in science. We attract, we care about some things, then we will see those everywhere. But science and spirituality are not separated. It's like two faces of a coin. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. They said spirituality is all praying without doing nothing. That the gods must allow then someone can do something. It's not that. Gods or Buddha are like mothers, fathers, who always love their kids. They teach us to live with morals, be patient, and help people. And through hardness, we learn about what is lost but also gained and vice versa. We lost opportunities to make money, but find peace for our souls. We lost time for invisible things, to feel pure, healing, and sacred energies. We lost some relationships to reach more deep connections. We lost greed and envy to stand modest before gods and Buddha. But it's not always easy like that. Sometimes we need to pay more, hurt more. The questions are, can we see clearly when pain and sorrow are swallowing our hearts? Can we sacrifice for our belief? Can we find the balance? This is my 4th video on this channel. I sacrifice my full-time job, my relationships with co-workers. I choose to work alone. I know it's not something for most people. I gained 59 views after 3 weeks. It's the worst feeling I've ever felt after spending lots of effort. I'm not giving up yet. I just hope you can feel differently. You can open your heart to know. The world is full of outcasts, but it's also magical. There's common things in every corner on earth. There's always a lonely soul who thinks about giving up, but continues to try. There's always tears falling down, not just because of weakness, but contain deep meanings and mixed emotions.